What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleashed. So happy to present a stellar panel, -1. And we'll start with the -1. He is the Judas of Sherdog.com. He's probably a similar betrayer on BJPen.com, where he's a frequent contributor as well. But what's up? Let's give it up for my man, Cole Shelton. Cole, thank you for joining us. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I was almost ready to take over this show after you were late, but I mean, it is what it is.
The king can be late, sir. You will wait. Now, we're going to get to a couple of faces that you've seen a few times on the Walkout Network. We'll start with the senior editor of Sherdog.com, the jack of all trades who's mastered them all, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
Good evening, sir. It's good to be here.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say more. Gave me a little time to sip my drink, and then you just said that, and it was over with.
Just try to throw you off your timing all night, sir.
Oh, my timing is all screwed up right now. All right, so, of course, now it's time to introduce the fourth chair. My man, a good friend of mine, also the founder of Mixed Combat Radio. You can catch his show on a daily basis on that YouTube channel. He's also a photographer and videographer for Sherdog.com. This is the man himself, the hipster, Matt Hunter. What's up, Matt?
What's up, guys? First off, fourth chair, but best chair, honestly. You know, maybe 1B to Cole right now, because Cole's been on a roll all like pre-show, and I cannot wait for Ant to have a meltdown. But I am glad to be here. Let's have a good time. Hit the like button, share the show, all that fun stuff. Subscribe. And you can find me, obviously, Matt Hunter, MCR, all platforms. But let's get into it.
And well, let me throw in a stat of the day real quick. The stat of the day is 2. 2 is the number of times that Matt Hunter has appeared on Unleashed. Jay Pettry has only appeared once. So we could make the argument that Matt is in chair 3A, if we're talking about something being usurped here.
You know what? I'm not mad at that argument. So, Jay, get your shit together.
I feel so bad. I love Jay.
Oh, yeah, I love Jay too, but he's sick right now, and therefore we're just forsaking him because he is not available for our bidding. So we do actually want to honor Jay's stat of the day. So while Ben put up a nice stat, we're going to throw a serious one out there, and that stat is 3. Now, I didn't quite research this stat as much as I probably should have, but whatever. It's a show on my channel. I can do what the hell I want. So this is it. The stat is 3. 3 times that a main event this year in a major card has been stopped due to some sort of foul. So we had Matt Mitrione with the ball kick from hell against Sergey Kharitonov in their first fight. We had, I think it was last week, Ryan Bader with the accidental eye poke to Cheick Kongo, ending that heavyweight title fight. And, of course, this weekend, Yair Rodriguez raking over the eyes of Jeremy Stephens 15 seconds into the first round of their main event. So that will obviously be the main thing that we're going to be talking about to begin this show, gentlemen. So swing or miss, and I'll open this up to the whole panel. The no contest in the main event of Mexico City's UFC card over the weekend, was that the most disappointing fight result of 2019?
Swing. I'm going to go swing with that. In the context of like no contest fight ending in fouls, in that category, yes, absolutely. With taking out like losses to people that I personally like, that subjectivity of disappointing fight results, absolutely this has to be up there. This was a borderline fight of the year contender on paper, a return of Rodriguez when I think a lot of people wanted him to return, and Jeremy Stephens' penchant for action and violence. So I think a lot of people were expecting this fight. I think also the fight card itself, while it did deliver sometimes, it felt like a slow-paced fight card. It felt like it was needing something, and that something was the main event, which didn't deliver. So this is up there for sure, and definitely at this point in time, the most disappointing result of a main event in 2019.
All right, so Matt, before we jump further down the next eye poke from hell that has plagued 2019, I do want to get to something you said about the card itself, kind of delivering in moments but feeling kind of slow pace. I actually felt the opposite. I wasn't too mad at this card overall. The pace kept moving. it wasn't a lot of lag time between the fights. So even if the fights themselves weren't the greatest thing in the world, granted there were some spectacular things that happened. There were some really good back and forth wars, but it still kept moving. And that was something greatly appreciated. I did not miss the FS1 days at all. So back to the
there. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Anything compared to the FS1 pacing is like lightning speed, right, guys? I mean, that was so slow that anything in comparison is fast. Let's be honest.
So since you're the boxing guy, has FS1 delivered the same sort of pace for the PBC cards now?
You have no idea. And on top of that, boxing fights on average are longer. You know, a title fight in boxing is 36 minutes of action. A title fight in MMA is 25 minutes of action. That's a significant increase of fight time. So, yeah, I think the pace has been an issue for Fox cards. Luckily, they just don't have the amount of fights. You know, they don't have a 12-fight, 10-fight fight card all on Fox. Or, you know, that just does not exist.
That's like a week and a half long affair.
You know, you have 3 fights on the top for a Fox main card, and then maybe a prelim card on FS1 with 4 fights, maybe 5 fights. That's it. So it's just less fights overall. So maybe that's why it doesn't feel as much of an egregious thing.
All right, cool. So Cole, now tell me, was the Yair Rodriguez and Jeremy Stephens no contest your most disappointing part of 2019 as far as fight results are concerned?
I'm actually going to miss here. I think, and not even a no contest, I think Rory McDonald, John Fitch might have it just because it was a draw and Fitch didn't get advanced in the tournament and McDonald did because he was the champ. It was such a unique circumstance where and now McDonald's fighting in the finale where he didn't even win his first round fight. It's kind of weird that it was because of his tournament they couldn't run it back and it was a title fight. And now John Fitch is now sitting on the sidelines. Like, he's close to retiring. He only wants that McDonald's fight. And it's just a really weird circumstance. That card wasn't that good, but I think Yair Stephens is probably number 2 in my books.
Yeah. And I totally forgot about the Roy McDonald and John Fitch draw. And actually, interestingly enough, one thing that we praised Bellator about, and we'll get in more Bellator talk because they do have an event coming up Saturday that myself and Matt Hunter will be on the ground for. But we praised.
And they have one Friday that nobody will be there for.
I totally forgot that when it was even taking place. Man, it's going to be a lot of travel for Scotty Cokes. He's got some frequent flyer miles to rack up. But one thing that we praised about their tournaments is having the title belts on the line in the tournament. Problem is, when you run into a draw in the tournament on that title fight, by athletic commission rules, you cannot have that tiebreaker round to conclude it all. So one big drawback with that. So something to keep in mind as the featherweight title will be on the line Saturday. So Ben, was this your most disappointing result for 2019 so far?
I'm going to give this one a miss as well. It was disappointing and anticlimactic in the moment. I mean, I probably would have been throwing my cup and my food as well. But a couple days removed from it, it doesn't really mar either fighter's record or career track. And if the UFC really wants it, they can run it back. I mean, talking about this fight or non-fight 2 years from now, how really different is it for these guys' stock and legacy than if one dude had slipped on pipes backstage and they never even made it to the cage? For me, the most disappointing result of this year is still Jermaine De Randami versus Aspen Ladd. I was totally amped for that fight as an appropriate test for both fighters. It had greater implications for its division than Stephens versus Rodriguez did. And unlike Stephens versus Rodriguez, it does leave a mark on the fighters' records and changes their path going forward. Ladd has an L now. You know, so like that one still kind of sticks in my craw. Like, whether I agree with the actual stoppage or not, which I really kind of didn't, you know, it was disappointing in how the fight played out. It didn't show me what I wanted to learn about those fighters. And it changed the course of women's bantamweight a lot more than this fight changed the course of men's featherweight going forward. That's still my disappointing result of the year.
All right, fair points there. So now Yair Rodriguez and Jeremy Stephens are probably going to run it back. That seems to be the most logical course. Now, what card would you put that on? I will throw out a suggestion, and I did rip this off from a gentleman on Twitter. It goes by the name of Tev Talks MMA. Always has some good little quips and stuff that he throws out there. But one thing he suggested was that this should go on the Boston Fight Night card. and that is essentially to replace what was supposed to be a great fight between Zabit Magomed-Sharipov and Calvin Kattar on that card, which has now been moved to Russia. So, gentlemen, any other ideas of cards that this could belong on?
Well, I would like to say I actually commented that on your live stream, so good thing you remember that.
Oh, you said that. You did say that too.
I did.
You did say that too. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Judas gets forgotten. Ben.
I mean, the UFC is like they're making noises like they're inclined to do this. Rodriguez has come out and said he's not terribly interested in it. Like, obviously, he has butted heads with the UFC in the past over fights he's claimed not to be interested in and lost badly. So, I honestly hope they don't remake it at all. I want them to put it on a card that they like throw out the window, and don't book the fight. I mean, if I'm Stevens, I absolutely want this fight back. He was coming off of 2 losses. I mean, albeit to the very best of best competition. He wasn't in danger of being cut, but his stock was way down. Like, Rodriguez was about as good a name as he could expect to draw in this fight. And he drew it at least in part because he was seen as a legitimate challenge but winnable fight for Yair in Mexico City. I mean, the bigger question is whether it's good for Rodriguez, because unlike Stevens, he could actually put his eye a little further up the ladder. I hope they don't remake this fight. But if they do, Boston's fine with me because now it needs a co-main event.
I disagree. I want the fight made as soon as possible. I thought it was a great fight on paper. I think it makes sense at this point in time, especially when you look at everyone else in the divisions sort of matched up at this point in time. We have the Korean Zombie Brian Ortega fight that just got announced an hour or so ago. So it seems like everyone is tied up at this point in time. On top of that, Stevens' injury is not too concerning to where the timetable for his sort of turnaround to come back and fight is too long. The Boston card does make sense. However, if you look at all across the board, all of their sort of fight night cards, and even if you look at like UFC 245, like this fight could fill in any event because all these events need a good fight on it. You know what I mean? Jacek versus Watterson in Tampa, that needs, I think, some card depth. It could absolutely be put on that one if Stevenson could have that quick of a turnaround. Even if you want to take him all the way to Singapore, Maia versus Askren, Dos Santos versus Volkov, like there are some fights to put him on, and because honestly speaking, a lot of these cards lack depth. So anything makes sense really for this rematch, which I think should be made.
I agree with you, Matt. I do want to see this fight again. It felt really anticlimactic. The most exciting part about the fight was the projectiles thrown from the audience at poor Jeremy Stephens. So let's talk about this for a little bit because I'm amazed at like some of the outrageous takes and quite frankly, MMA Twitter is one of the most toxic places on earth. Yet we wade in its waters every single day, and it's this backlash against the Mexican crowds, as if this doesn't happen in every other sport, in every other country, with every other nationality guilty of the same behavior.
No, but a brown person like throws one cup, and suddenly everybody on MMA Twitter is Colby fucking Covington.
But guys, this is something serious. Do you not see how Rodriguez reacted to Bisping? That was unsettling. Okay,
It was appalled
by that. Traumatized.
You know what? His career will never recover. Like, can you imagine that? He cursed out Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping, color commentator for the UFC, former champion, who once spit on a man's corner after illegally kneeing him in the head. Yair Rodriguez will never recover from using profanity in the cage.
I legit had someone.
I'm so glad you went there.
I legit had someone say to me that the UFC should not promote Yair Rodriguez because he's, quote, a jerk.
Isn't mixed martial arts comprised of like a collection of jerks from different walks of life?
Yeah, it's part of the price of admission. Normal people, for the most part, don't do this sport.
I've seen people on Twitter saying they should ban going for events in Mexico for like 5 to 10 years. Like,
what?
Like, whoa. Wow, it is outrageous. Like, so to have any outrage from the boxing community is just really stupid for a variety of reasons that we don't even have to get into. And Matt, I know you being the diehard boxing guy, I know you wholeheartedly agree with that, with some of the stupidity that goes on in that world. But within the MMA world, which arguably is a lot dumber in so many ways, like did they forget what happened at UFC 229?
Or the fact that the UFC literally used it as the sole promotion of Khabib's next fight?
Exactly. Or the fact that some of the other dumb things that have happened have been used to promote other fights. Like this is just par for the course. And have you ever seen a soccer game? Have you ever been to a football game? Have you ever been to a basketball game? I've seen plenty of fights at them all.
Or, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the UAE's cities like Dubai have been built off of slave labor. Kadyrov has been at how many UFC events and how many UFC fighters are managed by him? I mean, if we really want to go down the line of things that are unsettling in MMA, a bunch of drunk fans throwing stuff at fighters and at the cage, and then one of the fighters being upset and yelling some profanity is not on the list at all. Like, not even on the top 100. No, it's not on the list, period. Point
right. I mean, of course, we're not trying to condone that behavior because that's really stupid to do. And if you do that, you are a moron.
Yes.
You're a fucking moron. If you go to any sporting event and you throw things at the athletes. But this wasn't Ron Artest knocking somebody out in the crowd. Granted, that dude deserved it, but that's another story. So well, I'll leave that part alone. But any thoughts to wrap up that segment? I just had to get that off my chest. Anybody else want to add anything to the dumpster fire that's going on social media?
It was peak MMA Twitter. You had racism, overreaction, short memory, cognitive dissonance in every single fucking direction. Like, I have almost like backed away from Twitter entirely for like the last 48 to 60 hours just because I knew what was coming. And yeah, get out of here with that shit.
Yeah, this is just grade A stupidity. So now
I'm glad nobody seemed to be seriously injured by the fracas that happened afterwards. Because we're here kind of talking somewhat lightly about it and laughing. If somebody got hit in the head with a bottle and was in the hospital right now, we'd be having a different conversation. So
very, very true. Todd Martin, actually, our buddy and fellow member of the Sherdog staff, he was in attendance there. He was sitting on press row, and I remember him tweeting out a picture of like beer stains on the table where, like, you know, he said, "I got lucky. I only got hit with 2 beers." Brendan Fitzgerald, who was like literally hiding under the desk. I think that might have been a touch much, but he felt the need to dodge Modelo in such a dramatic fashion.
Especially when Bisping from the same table was squaring up on the whole crowd and wanted to fight the first 30 people in front of him.
No, it wasn't. He was recording. He literally grabbed his phone. If you don't see it, if you go to Bisping's IG, that's his feed. It's him standing up on his phone, just filming the crowd throwing stuff at him. And then filming Brandon Fitzgerald under the table. It was so good. And I want to add this point. We can separate the topics of, was the crowd in Mexico over the top and, like everyone said, morons and etc.? Absolutely. But that's completely separate from the pure outrageous outrage from MMA Twitter, which clearly has no understanding of like context. And on top of that, like, the last 6 years, or not 6 years, 6 months of like UFC history. Like, come on, guys. Like, you guys should be smarter than this at least. Like, especially like I saw some people on MMA Twitter and people that do podcasts that I expect a little bit better of, because come on, you guys follow the sport for a long period of time. Like, have some common sense here, honestly.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. Now I think one positive aspect about this whole spectacle, this whole what was supposed to be a thrilling main event, which turned into, you know, a collection of misdemeanors. I'd have to say the redemption story that we're all not talking about enough. And that is the redemption of one referee, Herb Dean, right there, who has been lambasted in the media for, and among the fan base for some questionable calls as of late. God damn it, man. This man redeemed himself in every way, shape, and form. As far as I'm concerned, Herb Dean, you have your street cred back. This man did everything in his power to make sure this fight took place in a fair fashion. He controlled every commission official that was trying to jump in there and stop it and examine Steven to do everything else. He delayed everything as best he could. He did break the rules technically, but he kept the spirit of the rules, and that I think deserves a lot of praise. What do you guys think?
He told the doctor how to do his job. He told the doctor, "You're not looking at the eye yet. It's not ready to be looked at." When the doctor really should have the discretion of when they want to go look at the eye. But I mean, he had a lot of controversial calls, the Askren Lawler, Ladd, GDR fights. This really redeemed himself. I think a lot of people were praising him. I think the praise is well deserved, given he knew how important this fight was and he wanted to keep it safe. Like, that fight do happen, but obviously Steven's eye just didn't open in time, so then it had to be ruled.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he did everything he could to delay it. I mean, so I think this more so shows a flaw with the rules. It shows a flaw with the system as opposed to how Herb Dean handled it. If the system wasn't flawed in the way it was, there would have been no need for Herb to manufacture a 5-minute rest period in order to allow Stevens to regain the proper use of his eye.
But that isn't the only issue here. I know that, like, to your point, the spirit of the rules, I think Herb Dean tried to sort of rule by, so to speak. But he clearly, I think, overstepped his jurisdiction when it came to the doctors and their discretion. I think Cole pointed that out quite well. And that
Judas.
And that's besides the 5-minute point, which I think you're right. That's more of an issue of the rules, and I think eye pokes do need longer times, and I think it's like a minute right now. I think it's the current rule. But besides that point, I don't think a ref should ever have discretion over a doctor. Like, that should never be okay, in my opinion. Especially in boxing, because, you know, in my mind, combat sports, it's all bleeds into one. When boxing refs have a lot more connections with sanctioning bodies, I don't want refs to have any jurisdiction over a medical professional when it comes to face punching. Like, something about that really bothers me. I get Herb Dean getting the praise in this occasion, but that one specific act really did, again, bother me. And I think, for me personally, that does taint this situation more so than me giving him praise, just being honest.
I get where Matt is coming from, and if things had played out differently, I would fall much more strongly on his side. As far as I saw from what happened from the, you know, Wolverine-esque, like, eye rake to the, to the end of the fight, it was more a case of Dean managing kind of the space and time and kind of triaging the order of events. Now, if he had decided that the event was worth restarting without a doctor say so, I would say, okay, he has completely overstepped his bounds. Like, why is the doctor even there? I mean, it's still in kind of a gray area to me that you know, he was like, okay, you know, not yet, you know, let me handle this. But it being the gray area and him really, I mean, he brought about the outcome that was the least damaging. Like, this was not going to end pretty at all from the moment Stevens kind of turned away and started, like, pawing at his eye. So for riot control, if nothing else, I'm inclined to give Dean a pass on this one and say, at least this is a step for him in the direction away from what his real problem has been the last few years, which is all of a sudden he's kind of stopped being the cop in the ring and just kind of, like, let things happen. So still not a perfect call. There's a lot of gray area there, but in the end, probably the best possible result came out of it. And I credit that to Herb Dean, because if he had let the doctor in right away, maybe that thing gets stopped in like 45 seconds because the doctor just goes, oh, hell. Because, I mean, look at the Carnelossi fight, which we may or may not talk about later, but that was probably stopped prematurely by the doctor. And who knows how much worse it would have been.
All right, fair points. Fair points by all. What's up?
Just want to add one point to what Ben's saying. I definitely agree that in this specific case, there's no negative effect on Herb Dean seemingly overruling the doctor. But long term, that should not be the norm. That should be frowned upon. That shouldn't be the rules. Doctors ultimately, it's the ref should have final say, but really it's the doctor. If the doctor comes in and says the fight's over, the ref should have to say it's over. Period.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I think if anything, this should spark some sort of change to the rules. Of course, it'll take years for that actually to take effect with the level of bureaucracy that's necessary for it to happen, and it probably will only happen in a third of the states in the U.S. And you got to love the quote-unquote unified rules. So let's move on here to another aspect of UFC Fight Night 159, and that was a candidate for knockout of the year. Steve Peterson knocks out Martin Bravo with a counter spinning back fist to a spinning back fist. A pretty amazing sequence of events. So, Matt, I'll start with you. Is that your knockout of the year so far, or are we still going with Masvidal over Askren?
I can't believe this is even a talking point. No, of course not. Like, it was a great knockout, but I'm sorry. First off, look at the guys that have the knockout. Automatically, that means it drops down in my rating. Sorry. While it was a great spinning back fist knockout to a spinning back fist, right? But that flying knee from Jorge Masvidal, that has been probably the biggest single moment in combat sports this year. It's up there with like Andy Ruiz defeating Anthony Joshua. It's up there with like a Canelo fight. Like, it's up there with just like the high watermark of like, oh, everyone saw this. Everyone sort of pay attention to this in the sporting world. And plus, it was an insane, historic knockout. Flying knee in the first, 3 or 4 seconds? I mean, again, historic. It set a record. Yeah, it has to be Masvidal, and I think it will take something extreme to really beat it. And I really don't think it does get beat at this point.
All right, Cole, what's your take, man? What's your knockout of the year so far?
Yeah, I think it still has to be Jorge Masvidal. I don't think anything can beat that. It was 5 seconds. It was really like 3, but the ref took 2 to get over. Just the stakes of that too. Like, Ben Askren, if he won, he was probably getting a title shot. And this fight, it was loser was going to get cut. They're on like the lower end of the UFC roster. The stakes were higher. It was a bigger card, more magnitude, more eyes on it, and just what Masvidal did. And then to add to it, even how like there was video of him practicing it. I think that even adds more to it on my end. That it wasn't just a fluke, and it wasn't just like, I'm just going to go run throw this. Like, there was actually, it is lucky to land it, but there was their coaches in Poirier telling him, let's try it. Like, you might end up on your back, but you might end up there anyways. So let's just risk it. But I think it still has to be Masvidal's knock over Askren.
All right, Ben, is it unanimous?
It's unanimous. I mean, the most aesthetically pleasing knockout of the year, absolutely. Give me Peterson over Bravo. I mean, I'm too old to have played it myself, but I have kids that played Beyblade. That's what Beyblade looks like. 2 dudes spinning in, and one, for some inexplicable reason, knocks the other one out of the thing. So it was a beautiful technique. But yeah, Masvidal still has it locked up because of the record-setting time, the stakes of the fight, and the fact that it was more or less his star-making moments. I mean, obviously he knocked out Till and had the altercation backstage with Leon Edwards that kind of alerted people who've come to this sport within the last 3 or 4 years that this is like one raw ass dude. But him knocking out Askren is really the thing that has elevated his star to the point it is right now. So yeah, it's the knockout of the year, and we can probably sew it up right now.
Yeah, I can't disagree with the panel at all. That was such a big moment. Of course, I might feel a little bit biased because I was sitting there about 30 feet away from it taking place. But man, like, how do you forget that? Like, everything leading up to it, their feud beforehand, the way they were jaw jacking at each other, the relaxed, casual demeanor that Masvidal had as he leaned against the fence with his hands behind his back, and then Joe goes into this full sprint into that flying knee. As impressive as Peterson's spinning back fist was over Martin Bravo, it just wasn't that. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be a very, very long time before we see anything that we can question whether or not it was a better knockout. So, and I mean, if we see something better than that this year, this has been the greatest year for knockouts in UFC history. Ridiculous. All right, so we're gonna move on to the segment where we talk about things that shocked us the most. So fittingly called "I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcon." So Cole, I'm gonna start with you, my man. Tell me what surprised you the most about the fights over the weekend, whether it be UFC Fight Night 159, whether it be Valor Bare Knuckle, which I wonder how many people watched that one, Karate Combat, which low key put on an event and didn't do a very good job of letting the world know, and they normally make a good product, so disappointed with that. But anyway, pre-fight coverage, the fight themselves, or anything that happened afterward, the floor is yours, my man.
This may hurt you and Matt, but it has to be Bethe Correia winning. Did anyone think she was actually going to win that fight?
That was mine too.
That was mine.
I did.
No one expected her to win that fight.
I was
Wow.
hyping that fight on our show last week. Okay, you're welcome, guys. I strong game. You're welcome.
Definitely a contender for fight of the night. That was that I don't want to disrespect the athletes because that's just not what I like to do here, but I know bad MMA when I see it. That was bad MMA. That was like I've seen better quality fights at amateur events. Just throwing that out there.
Sajara Eubanks was a UFC champion at one point, sort of. Like let's not forget.
She was a title challenger who never got. She was supposed to challenge for the title, missed weight, and then later on was promised a title shot and didn't get that promise fulfilled. Right?
The whole,
She
10
failed.
minutes.
She failed the "Does Joe Rogan know who the hell I am?" test.
Yeah.
She was supposed to headline Madison Square Garden. Can we take that in?
Yeah. That was gonna happen. That was gonna happen. I actually felt sorry for her in that instance because she was promised the shot and it was advertised and whatnot. But whatever. So, all right. I've got another moment that surprised me. From Valor Bare Knuckle. Did anyone else recognize Sokoudjou? Because I certainly did not. Bald head, babyface Sokoudjou was like a totally different person. I had no idea who that was. Yeah, so there's that, man. Sokoudjou, man, out here in disguise in these streets.
As Sherdog, editor-in-chief Mike Fridley said, Father Time still undefeated.
Now I need to go watch this because I haven't seen it yet.
All you need is to find a still image. Don't bother finding video. It's no more interesting than the still image.
All right. Any more surprising moments from the weekend?
I will add. Alexa Grasso, man. How is she not improved? Like that is like one of the most surprising things. Like she has been such a talented prospect for so long and has not improved at all, in my opinion, in terms of her takedown defense. It's just upsetting. I just want to point that out. It may not even fit this topic or this segment, but I just want to point out how depressing it is that Alexa Grasso cannot evolve as a fighter.
Hey, I'm happy to kind of jump in and pull all these strings together, honestly, because I was about to talk about the Grasso fight anyway, because Cole immediately snaked three of us, with his comment, and we were just talking about Sokoudjou. I mean, Sokoudjou is he's the perfect example of the fallacy that if somebody is really promising and great at one or two things when they're really young, well, the rest of it has to catch up at some point, right? Because for Sokoudjou, it never did. He pulled off a couple of the most spectacular things we have ever seen in a ring or a cage at the very end of the Pride era. I mean, I remember when he butted his way into the Sherdog top 10 at light heavyweight after beating consecutively Arona and Little Nog in two of the biggest upsets in major MMA history. And then he just kind of fizzled out and went away. Like, he was that good when he was 23. He never got better. Alexa Grasso, kind of the same thing. I mean, I've been on the warpath about this for 3 years now, that the UFC poached her from Invicta too early. I know why they took her. She was super young. She was exciting. She was a good and improving fighter. She was actually a native Mexican. She had a kind of a marketable thing about her. But they pulled her right when she was about to challenge for Angela Hill's title next in Invicta back in 2016. And I said at the time, this is premature. She's probably not quite ready for the UFC level opposition. And I turned out to be right. And she hasn't really improved all that much. And part of it might be that from the beginning, she's been at Lobo Gym, which is basically her family's gym. And some fighters do really well with being the big fighter in the small pond. I mean, BJ Penn lived on it for a long time. Some fighters hit a ceiling there pretty quickly. Maybe she's one of those latter cases. But, I mean, I'm not / I am surprised moment. The most impressive moment to me from the whole UFC card on Saturday was Carla Esparza's third round armbar escape. Like, that was the best 15 to 20 seconds of the whole card. Like, the coolest thing I saw all night. Spinning back fist knockout notwithstanding. Because at the moment where everybody in their seats, including me, was like, oh man, this is done, and her arm looked like it was going like 3 different wrong ways, she was doing exactly the right thing. And that's exactly how Carla Esparza should beat Alexa Grasso. Knowing the grappling through reps and knowing not to panic just because your arm hurts through cage time. I mean, she went in the exact right direction, pulled her arm out, ended up winning the fight. And I mean, I was surprised and I wasn't surprised, but to me, Carla Esparza gets the gold star for the whole event.
Yeah, definitely a gutsy performance by her. That third round, man, was nuts. Overall, a very good fight. So I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but do you recall your scorecards for that fight?
29-28 Esparza, the first 2 I gave her.
29-28 Esparza for me as well. I only know that because I guested on Sherdog contributor Keith Schillen's podcast Sunday morning, so I had to pull up like my own notes from the fights. But yeah.
All right, Matt, did you score that one while you were watching that?
No, God, no.
Yeah, that's tricky. I figured you didn't. I had it 29-28 Esparza as well. I wasn't mad. A draw makes a lot of sense. I see a case for a 10-8 round in the third for Grasso. I'm not even mad at a 29-28 for Grasso, depending on how you looked at that first round, but not totally mad at it, but I think Esparza.
See, that's a wrong take.
Well, no.
Yes.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I think it's based on how you value positioning over damage that's inflicted. That's really what it comes down to. I value longer positional control over landing some isolated strikes, but I can see an argument for the other way. That's all. So I think it's one of those cases where everyone screaming robbery once again is not correct. That has got to be the most overused term in our sport.
That's actually a talking point right now on like the Twitter sphere, is that this fight was a robbery. Like,
oh yeah. Oh, you should have seen the live chat on my post fight show on the Walk of Shame was going nuts over it.
Esparza was taking her down at will. I don't know, look, you can be like touching someone up on the feet a little bit, but if you're being taken down at will, you're not controlling the fight.
And this is the boxing guy saying this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't you can't do that. And plus, no offense to Grasso, but it wasn't like she was touching her up on the feet that much either. Like, she was clearly the more advantageous boxer in exchanges. She was clearly getting the better of it, but she wasn't really landing it on top of Esparza. She wasn't really hurting her, in my opinion, on the feet in terms of what people are looking for that. Hey, you're getting taken down a lot, but I'm still going to give you the 10-9 round because you're doing damage. Yeah, damage really inflicted, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that first round, I think Esparza proved herself to be at least competent enough on the feet to keep Grasso honest. So it wasn't like she was just taking just unanswered shot after unanswered shot, and then lucked into a takedown. Like, no, she endured a couple strikes. She gave a few of her own. Granted, Grasso clearly was the more polished striker, and she had the harder shots. But at the end of the day, a lot of that positional control means time off the clock that you are controlling. It's kind of hard to win a round when you spend 3.5 minutes of it on your back.
I will add. I think there's almost like a return to form for Esparza, in my opinion. She's always struggled with long, lanky strikers. Always has. Look at Gianna Jacek, for example. But her level changes were on point. She was able to slip the jab continually. I thought she looked on point all 3 rounds, in my opinion. I think the only damage she really had was that Grasso was hunting for submissions off her back. I'll give her that credit. She was not just laying on her back doing nothing, having Esparza in her guard. She was actively looking for submissions, and obviously the 3rd round almost got one. But Esparza was clearly dominating the fight, in my opinion. Like, I don't know how you don't score the first 2 rounds for Esparza, and then you give the 10-9 to Grasso in the 3rd round because of the armbar attempt. It's clearly that's the scoring. I can't believe this is even a discussion amongst the Twitterverse of MMA about robbery. Get up. What?
Like,
oh my God.
Everybody has a huge reach advantage over Carla Esparza.
True. That's true.
I mean, she's been fighting that the whole time. Like, of course it looks like Dalsum versus Yoda when she's fighting a real strawweight. I mean, how different would this conversation be if the UFC had inaugurated an atomweight division at the same time as strawweight and she'd gone there instead? She'd beat Demetrius Johnson right now. I mean, she'd be on an 11 title defense win streak. Everybody has a huge advantage over her in terms of reach and length and height, which is why she's pretty good at navigating those disadvantages now. I mean, no, she couldn't get inside consistently on Joanna, but Joanna's a fantastic striker who's long and lanky even for that division. I mean, I hesitate to call out other people who know a lot about fighting and are watching the same fights as I am, but I mean, I'm well known to be like a Jordan Breen disciple from way back. And something I learned from him about 10 years ago was to mute the fucking commentary.
Yes.
Because sometimes they're biased and sometimes they're wrong. And even when they're not biased or wrong, they are still tied into the narrative that they had going into the fight. And sometimes they're slow to change that. I mean, if fighter A won round 1 10-9 and won round 2 10-9, then in round 3, anything fighter B does is going to get played way the hell up because it is literally their job to drum up your interest in what's going on the screen right now. And that's exactly what happened in this fight. Round 3 was a 10-9 round. 10-9. Sound off. I watched it with the sound off. I only ever turned my sound on Saturday if I saw something crazy pop up on my Twitter and I rewound for a sec to see what everybody was going crazy about. But sound off, that was a 10-9 round. It's only a 10-8 if you have to sell hundreds of thousands of people on the idea that, this fight might be turning around. Because nobody wants to hear the commentator say, well, Grasso's pretty clearly winning this round, so 3.5 minutes from now, this should probably be a 29-28 decision. No real suspense here. Their whole job is to sell you suspense.
All right, so an impassioned take from
let me
the jack of all trades. What's up?
Because I feel like this is a great topic.
Okay.
But on that 10-9
Speak on it, brother.
distinction in terms of grappling and damage for that 3rd round, I've always been in the mindset that a near submission isn't enough to just give you a 10-8 round. I'm sorry. You need grappling dominance on top of near submission. So if somebody has your back for most of the round, on top of trying to get a rear naked choke, that's a 10-8 round because they dominated you for most of the round, and clearly you were in threat of getting finished for most of that round. When you only have a near submission for a brief moment of time, but the rest of the round you're still losing, it's hard to give you the 10-8. Sorry. That just doesn't work in my understanding of the rules and how you score a fight.
All right. One thing for sure too, a big advantage of turning off the commentary when you're watching fights, just in case Michael Bisping is having extended conversation about enemas. That is a good reason to turn that off. And also what he was talking about beating up everybody in Street Fighter, and him and Fitzgerald had the rules wrong about grabbing your own shorts as a submission defense. So it was overall kind of a disastrous commentary booth. Normally, Bisping is much better in the booth than he was Saturday, but wasn't my favorite performance by him. All right, so mute the commentary, I guess, in Jordan Breen fashion. I think that's when he catches up on all his music too. So I can't listen to hip hop and watch a fight at the same time because I'm too busy concentrating on the lyrics, or I'm concentrating on the fights themselves, and my brain is going all over the place. So what is that surprising to you?
Yeah, like I predominantly, again, Jordan Breen disciple here, longtime SRN listener from back in the day. Of course, you mute the commentary and you listen to hardcore hip hop. Of course, I mean that's what you do.
But you and Jordan ain't got bars though. That's what's up. Like y'all ain't got bars. I got bars. So I'm thinking of these bars. Like what's up?
I'm white. I don't have rhythm. Of course I don't have bars. Like,
and I know Jordan ain't got no bars. So that's what I'm saying. So my mind is on a whole nother plane. Y'all ain't feeling that. You know what I'm saying? Which I know Cole want to say something. I know Cole want to say some Judas stuff right now. Say something, Cole.
Hold on. You didn't place Big in your top 20 rappers of all time. Get the fuck out of here.
Hey, but I have.
And you're wearing shirts.
Oh no, I'm a big Biggie fan, but I factor longevity. So I mean, unfortunately he wasn't around long. Big Pun is one of my favorite guys to listen to ever, but he's not in my top 20 because he wasn't around long enough. That's all I'm saying. So I can defend that point very easily. So let's move on from that before Matt get his mic cut. Because I ain't playing it. Actually, I can't. I don't know if I can technically cut your mic from the way this is set up right now. So I don't know. I just had to turn the call off and I'll just destroy the whole show. And I thought Cole would be the one to shut it all down, but
Cole would probably say something about Drake.
I don't even like him.
But
were you a Tory Lanez guy?
If we're talking about Canadian hip hop, like some strip club like 10 miles from me has like Major Lazer like playing, and I'm like, do they have the stripper girls at the same time? Because then I might go. Anyway,
clearly, Ben's wife is not in the room as he's recording. So
you can meet Ben's wife would be front row.
Oh well, Ben lives a privileged life, and we're going to
be like, can you break this 50 into ones for me, please, on the way there, for my wife. All right.
So now let's move on to another topic that I'm sure will rise the ire out of a couple of us, definitely me. There was a press conference to promote UFC 244, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, obviously for the BMF title, which is actually a thing. Great backdrop over the with the Brooklyn Bridge in the background on a rooftop, but wow, what a dumpster fire of a press conference. Please explain to me how that happened the way it happened. Now, first off, let's just get this one out the way, because I think this fight was built off of the legendary trash talk that the two have engaged in with other opponents, and of course being action fighters as well. So now that these two are fighting each other, they have nothing but the utmost respect for one another, and they're simply looking at this as a way to make a lot of money by competing in some sort of athletic contest. Doesn't make for great trash talk. Definitely disappointed some people on that end. But overall, what are your thoughts on that press conference? Ben, I know it's burning in you, man. Let me know.
I mean, I skipped it in the moment because I expected it would be terrible. I've gone back and listened to some pieces of it, some sound bites, some individual quotes based on what other people have given me in terms of feedback, and I've heard nothing to change my mind. This was the worst thing to do with these two guys, because the thing about both Diaz and Masvidal is that they're really real. And I'm not talking about like, oh, they're from the street. I'm just saying that their best moments, like their star-making moments, are them just throwing sincere, unrehearsed things off the cuff in the moment. Like all of their best sound bites are them just saying something accidentally hilarious and insightful at the same time, based on legitimate questions the media were asking them, or legitimate moments of conflict on social media. So the worst possible thing you could do for these two guys is put them at a table together with a huge paycheck on the line and have media serve them a bunch of softballs. Like, hey, say one of your funny lines. Just kind of doing like underhand pitch at them. So it was stupid and boring. And everything that came out of it was stupid and boring. It was. How did the UFC fuck this up?
How did they credential?
Who got credentialed for this?
Yeah, like really. How did they credential the fucking circus for this?
Yeah.
What a clown show of morons and just a complete collection of nincompoops to be sitting there and representing the press.
Mhm.
Even Ariel Helwani and Phoenix Carnival could not save this.
Nope.
No, they couldn't.
At least we know Dana White thinks the Patriots are going to win the Super Bowl.
Man.
And hey,
Yeah.
we now know what Nate Diaz's thoughts are on being a vegan and fighting and calling himself the bass motherfucker.
Who is that guy?
And
Please
Dana,
tell me. Somebody tell me who is that guy.
And Dana said that before
Lockdown.
Antonio Brown got cut by the Patriots. Now he's like, can he make 205 in time to be on the Contender Series next season?
The answer is yes, he can, and the answer is yes. Dana White will definitely give him a contract.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's your next UFC prospect right there.
For what Ben is saying here, I'll give them some credit for some things, and then I'll rant just like Ben did. The poster and the parental advisory graphic for their names.
That was fire.
And to be honest, the daytime, and they kind of fucked this up on just the planning of the timing of the press conference, but the daytime aesthetics of the Brooklyn Bridge behind them was perfect. They just lost that when the press conference started because they started too late. I think the issue here was to be expected for a lot of us hardcores because we know that these two guys, A, like each other, B, and have always respected each other. If you look back in every media interview they've done and they've talked about each other, it's always out of respect. So that tension, that conflict you need between opponents to build a fight isn't really there because they don't have that. They like each other. And on top of that, shout out to Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell from Mortal Kombat. But I think it was Luke Thomas made this point. Like, both these guys are so extremely happy now. Like, they got the money. They got the pay-per-view for them. Like, they're the A-sides. Think about it. Like, there's no McGregor. There's no other name to feed off of. It's them that they have built themselves into. And plus, the UFC obviously throws out all the stops for them. Brooklyn Bridge, the sign, everything. So I just think that the tension that you need to build and hype a fight was never there, at least for this immediate time. And hopefully there's no artificial, hey, go and push each other sort of thing. But I think both guys need to understand we need to ramp up this a little bit more. There needs to be tension here because I'll be honest, I know for me and a lot of other people, we saw that and go, we love this fight, but man, Canelo Kovalev's the same day, and that just seems like a much bigger fight. And this one has no animosity. There's no of that, that grimy grit to combat sports that we kind of expected from this matchup. It was too posh, too glamour, to be honest. I think honestly, if one of these guys were fighting Conor McGregor, the aesthetics make sense. Maybe not with each other. Maybe the location was wrong. Maybe again, I think to Ben's point, these two guys represent something, and I don't know if the UFC still knows what that is yet or how to promote that. Cool.
Well, the thing is, too, they are both counter punchers when it terms in trash talking. Diaz's best lines are coming off of something McGregor said. Masvidal's best lines are something Joe Rogan or the media is asking about Askren's. They don't come up with the lines like McGregor does on his own beforehand that gets everything. It's from another fighter saying something like the super necessary thing. Masvidal's like biggest line to date. That's from a media asking about Askren because he didn't like Askren. If that was Diaz he knocked out, he would never have said anything like that.
Yeah. Definitely agree.
That's a great point.
I will take another opportunity to slander the fools that actually got press passes and thank the UFC for said press passes. I wanted to throw up when I saw that. I literally like punched the desk that I was sitting at when that happened. It's like this is nuts. Like man,
the sad
bloody
part,
check it, like bloody elbow and Josh Gross cannot get access. Let's keep that in mind. But homie with the raggedy t-shirt asking the dumbass questions about being a vegan with his little bullshit ass logo trying to wave it in the camera. This guy gets in. Get all the way the fuck out of here with that, please. Get all the way the fuck across the street with that with me, man. I ain't got time for that shit. I'm sorry, Matt. Yeah, I cut you off.
By the way, I found out who he was, and I immediately just blocked him because I just don't care to.
Hey, bro, shout out to Matt Wells who who instantly muted him and put a screenshot of him muting him on Twitter as soon as he found out who that guy was. What a clown show! No, thank you. The only clown I care to see is the Joker, which comes out in a couple weeks. I'm really excited. But anyway, let's move on from this. We're going. What's up?
Is DC making movies?
Hey,
oh,
by the way, speaking of DC movies,
no, don't even start that shit.
You know what? I just
don't even start that shit.
I just showed my son Aquaman.
No. We're not talking about that trash ass movie.
You didn't like it? It was a good movie.
Aquaman sucked ass. That was a horrible excuse for a movie. I want my 2.5 hours back. That was trash.
I went back and watched Justice League. Gets more slack than it deserves. I will say that.
Yeah, all right. At least I at least had fun watching Justice League. Aquaman felt like a chore. Like no, I'd rather mow the lawn than watch Aquaman. That shit was trash.
That unneeded plot line of going to the desert in the Sahara for no reason went to Aquaman totally was entertaining, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, you know what? You're done, Matt. You're done. This will be Matt's last appearance on Unleashed. Cole, you've been promoted. Now let's move on here because we were supposed to talk about this last week and we started running over time. I have a feeling we're going to run into similar issues today, but there's been a rash of retirements that haven't lasted, of course, and that's something we kind of expect in MMA, but it touched home for me a little bit more just a few days ago. My all-time favorite fighter, Rashad Evans, now saying that he will be the latest of mixed martial arts fighters who have hung up the gloves and just so they can put them back on. Fellas, why is this happening? Why don't these MMA retirements stick?
Well, can we talk about Stefan Struve's retirement is a normal gap in between months off for fighters?
Yeah, he retired for like 4 months?
Yeah.
And Alexander Gustafsson as well. He's apparently coming back now. He just announced his retirement. That was 3 months ago, something, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So,
well, here's the reason why. Ant. A, fighters don't get paid enough. B, athletes overall have a very short career path. If you think about it, you know they're fighting, or if you're an athlete, just overall playing for around 15, 20 years. If you're lucky, if you're average, it's more like 5 years. So most of these guys aren't making money. If you're at the top end, you're still not making money if you're in the UFC. Look at all of John Nash's reporting on that. And I think a lot of these guys get beat up, get sort of worn down from a training camp, announce they're done because that's what they're feeling like. They're emotional. And then a month goes by, they need a paycheck, and they go, fuck, there's nothing else I know what to do. I didn't go to school, or I've never done anything else in terms of a career. I'm going to go back to fighting because that's what I know to do. I'll make, a few $10,000, maybe a few six figures if I'm a high end guy, and I'll get by. I'll figure it out, and that's what they're thinking. If these fighters were paid more, if they had more of an exit strategy through like a fighters union on post careers, I think this issue wouldn't be an issue.
Fair points. Fair point indeed. But Rashad Evans' retirement felt different though. Just inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, he definitely had an unfortunate string of losses, lasting several years, and then there was that brain health issue that the New York State Athletic Commission repeatedly denied him a fight license for. So now it just feels like, wow, what changed in that amount of time? And Rashad Evans also, it's not like he's been hurting for work. He's been a regular face on the analyst desk. He's done some commentary work as well. So just like, wow, this retirement isn't sticking. And the fact that it's not this comeback fight will not take place in the UFC. This screams Bellator. I mean, how fast did Scott Coker reach for Ali Abdelaziz's number on his phone when this announcement was made?
Seconds.
If that. It just as long because Ali's name it starts with an A, so you know it's at the top of your contact list.
Well, the only way we'll know is if Rashad suddenly starts sending out like uncapitalized and misspelled tweets.
Or if he just starts having irrational Conor McGregor hatred on Twitter. That will be another indicator as well.
Yes.
All right, so now we're going to move on to one of my favorite segments here, and that's called the speed bag. That's where I get to regulate, I get to be in control, and nothing y'all motherfuckers can do about it because, you know, it's whatever. So you've got 30 seconds to answer your questions. Cole, we might cut your time just a little bit, but that's only out of personal spite. That's all. That's all. Nothing to worry about there. But Ben, I'm really counting on you, Ben. I'm really counting on you to show off your knowledge, to tell us everything you know about mixed martial arts. So
in 30 seconds.
I was hoping he forgot that part, Matt.
Okay.
All right. Now I'm going to start with you, Cole, for this first question. UFC President Dana White told Barstool Sports that they are making Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier 3. Do you think this is the right call? We have 30 seconds. Let's do it.
Absolutely, it's the right call. This is the only heavyweight title fight I want to see. Get out of here with Francis Stipe too. We saw what happened. Stipe dominated Francis. Francis wrestling, I don't think it has gotten better. Stipe Cormier, at least it's 1-1. Cormier needs it for his legacy. It has to be done. Make it.
Oh my goodness, Cole, with 10 seconds to spare.
Whoa.
Kind sir. Now I'm gonna ask this question of you, Matt.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Ooh.
LFA 77 is this Friday.
Why are you asking me?
Actually, no. You're not the LFA guy.
I was gonna say,
You're
like,
the
why
LFA
does
guy.
he have to be Jay for this question?
Yeah, you're you have more of the ties to LFA, Ben. So you're gonna get this question. LFA 77 is this Friday, featuring the finals of their first tournament. So will they find a broadcast partner before the weekend? You have 30 seconds. Let's do it.
Who gives a damn?
Great answer. Yes.
The whole thing that was great about the LFA Access deal is that it was easy to find LFA fights, and casual fight fans were able to find their fights on a regular basis. Even if they find a new partner at this point, who cares? It's going to be a month, if not year-long, breaking in process. Stop.
All right. Unfortunately, you came in under time, so I didn't get the chance to cut you off. But
You asked me the only question that I don't have a 3-minute answer for.
so I'm gonna give this last question to you, Ben. All right, Matt. So you're gonna be on the clock for this one. Can Antonio and AJ McKee join an illustrious group of father-son tandems that both win on the same fight card? And how appropriate, because we will be in the building for that one this weekend. You got 30 seconds, my man. Let's go.
I'm going to say no, because Bellator tries to do things like this, and it seems to always fail. So it's not really about, like, I think, like, the opponent, Antonio McKee, is fighting really tough, and he's really old. It's not. No, it's Bellator trying to do something, and all their plans seem to not work. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
A fair point to that one. So let's go ahead.
Wait,
and
Can I jump in with a quick thing on this one?
Of course.
I think if anybody spoils this, is Georgie Karakhanyan like upsetting AJ McKee. Like,
I agree 100%.
The fight that Antonio has is completely set up for him. I have seen a couple of William Shiraipai fights. He's fought once since 2013. He's actually he's 47, so he's almost as old as Antonio McKee. And it is going to look like every other Antonio McKee fight. It is going to be the most miserable 15-minute decision you've ever seen. Yes. I think Georgie Karakhanyan is kind of a live dog against AJ McKee. He is by far the best fighter that McKee has fought. And he has fought 4 or 5 fighters better than McKee, and he's gone about 3-2 against them. So I'm not calling the upset, but I think there's a very good chance that AJ is the one that drops this.
I couldn't have said it any better. That makes all the sense in the world. So, but let me run down, see if I can answer all three questions in 30 seconds
Right.
and go. For the first question, I do think that Stipe DC3 is the right call to make. Nobody wants to see the third Jones fight, and the winner of this is the greatest heavyweight in UFC history. LFA 77 could find a broadcast home, but hey, if it's not on a streaming platform that we all have, does it really matter? And Antonio and AJ McKee could definitely be a father-son duo to win on the same card. But like you said, Karkarian could spoil it all. Exactly 30 seconds. I am incredible. And yes, what's up, Cole?
That LFA thing, if it doesn't go on Fight Pass, I think that's a huge mistake from the UFC. But it's Monday. Their event is what, Friday? Is no one worried that it's not going to get canceled pretty soon if they don't have somewhere to put it?
I think there's going to be untelevised if that happens. Right? I mean,
well, yeah, I wonder how much revenue do they generate from the broadcast deals? How much of it comes from their live gate and merchandise or whatever?
If they run properly, it shouldn't really come from Access TV. Like, honestly, like if you're a small time regional promoter, most of your revenue should be coming from ticket sales. That's how you should be planning and structuring your business. If they're not doing that, then that's on them, to be quite honest.
You'd have to think there are at least a couple of suitors for LFA. I mean, they have a definite place in the MMA landscape.
Here's the thing. DAZN just came out and said we're dropping down all of our purses. We're ending that high inflation for purses that we started a year ago. If DAZN's stopping that, that would mean that ESPN Plus is in essence slowing down probably their budgets towards combat sports. Same with Fox. Same with Showtime. Showtime right now may not even get Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz via Mike Coppinger. That's been reporting right now. So I think, yes, there could be a lot of suitors, but right now we're also in that weird quasi period where I think the economic bubble that has been built via streaming and all these TV network deals across all of combat sports, I think that is, the roosters are coming to roost, so to speak. The chickens are coming to roost, right? Like it's going to happen here where these networks have to shrink down their budgets, and these promoters overall have to shrink for the purses because everyone across the board is getting paid insane amounts for fights that aren't making the money back.
Well, here's one aspect that I think is kind of flying under the radar here, and perhaps this might have been better served for our buried treasure segment at the end of the show, but I'll just go ahead and throw this one out there now. Like, anyone notice that Combate wasn't on DAZN this past week?
Campbell McLaren came out and said something to the effect that this fight isn't on the deal, but they'll be back on for the next show.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the case or not. So only time will tell. But yes, I did make that.
Right. So if
I
there's
thought
more
Combate and one championship draw the biggest numbers in the world, though.
Oh, you know it. 67 billion galaxies watch one championship, so you know that.
The difference is that Chatri Sitchatong has not given me his personal phone number, and Campbell McLaren has. Only Jason Burgos has the personal phone number of Chatri Sitchatong.
Oh, Captain Credential. Oh, we're going to have to bring him on board for this show one day. So, all right, fellas. So, yeah, I think we've got some interesting questions that will be answered by the end of the week for those last two questions. And of course, Stipe DC3 should be an exciting one, a very high stakes fight. And DC saying this is going to be his last one for sure. Maybe he retires as the heavyweight champion. Nice little way to book in his career. Okay, so we do have dual Bellator events over the weekend. Of course, 228 taking place at the Forum. Myself and Matt Hunter will be live in the building reporting that one for Sherdog.com. But what is flying well under the radar is Bellator Dublin.
/ 227.
Yes.
It's the afternoon and the night.
Is it so? This is another one where they're splitting the card into two different names. Is this broadcast in 4 different platforms?
Bellator Dublin is headlined by Gallagher. I think that's taken delayed here. And 227's headlined by Benson Henderson, Miles Jury, and I think that one's live. But I mean, I don't really know. It's Bellator. You've got like 4 places to watch it.
Why do they do this? Like, They have the worst business strategy I have ever fucking seen in combat sports. And the fact that they still do tape delay in 2019 is deeply, deeply concerning. Like, I don't know if everyone over there is just over the age of 50 or something, and like they aren't like hip to the time, but like no one does tape delay anymore. Like honestly, like boxing doesn't do it. Other major sports don't do it. Like I can't remember the last time anyone's done tape delay other than Bellator.
Tape delay presupposes that you don't know what the fuck Twitter is.
Yeah. Social media kills tape delay. Like it's the dumbest thing ever.
On like YouTube and find a stream on it. Like I guarantee you I can do that. Like I don't need to stay and watch the DAZN tape delay stream of it. Like I don't, or Paramount Network, which I never go to because that.
And nor does anyone care to watch it tape delayed because who is on that card? James Gallagher against some guy that he's gonna smoke.
Right.
Michael Page
against the guy he's gonna smoke.
Yeah, against 3-1 veteran.
Just look at this card. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 fights on this card. 19. And think about this. This is only the first card of the weekend for them. What are they doing? Like no one wants to see that much MMA, period. But B, no one cares to see that much Bellator. Like, don't they have any concept of like oversaturating their own brand at all?
So to put context behind the 19 fights that are taking place on the Bellator Dublin / Bellator 227 card, there are 4 fighters making their professional debuts. There is one fighter with a 3-4 record. There's another who's 1-0. We have a 2-1-1. We have a 3-3. So we have we have a guy who's 2-0-1. Like we have some people who don't belong in a major promotion and just stacking up a card unnecessarily, because it's not really stacking a card if these aren't people that are even currently professional fighters.
And to paraphrase Charles Dickens, who is the Bellator MMA of great authors, it is the best of times, it is the worst of times, because the LA card is stacked. The main card, other than Musashi Machida, which is Bellator being Bellator, retirement plan for UFC contenders, is completely loaded. Every fight on that LA main card is awesome, and I envy you two that you're gonna get to see it in person.
I just to correct Anthony, because he keeps saying I'm not gonna be there live for the fights. I'll be there for fight week. Sorry, Ant.
You're not gonna.
I didn't get credentialed for the actual fight day. Just fight week.
Ant
really?
Ant got a great big trench coat.
I thought I took care of that.
I mean, unless I have an email that is like.
Okay, well, more conversation has happened since, so we'll talk. We'll talk. Yeah, and plus you probably want to see Spence and Porter anyway. So
I do really want to see that fight, even though they PBC are assholes and they didn't credential me. Whatever, I'm not hurt.
I thought you were the PBC shill. Like that's what they say. So
No, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Maybe they didn't credential you because they're trying to hide the fact that you're a PBC shill.
I've tried to make this distinction like combat sports fans are the worst, or boxing fans are the worst, or MMA fans are the worst. No, I think just people suck. Like, especially people online. So like, I don't know, man. Like, people want to say whatever they want. It's what it is. But anyways, hopefully I will be at Bellator then if Anthony's correct.
Yes, and Anthony knows these things. Anthony is trying to move mountains right now. Actually, not really that impressive. I just emailed a couple people, but that's another story. All right, so let's move on from here. The UFC is also having an event this weekend, one that is definitely flying on the radar, one that I forgot was taking place, mainly because my mental energy is devoted toward preparing for Bellator fight week. But the UFC's got a card in Denmark. Takes place in the U.S. pretty early in the morning Saturday. So before we get to see some Bellator action, we get to see some UFC action. Now, Jack Hermanson and Jarrett Cannonier will be facing each other in that card's main event. So, fellas, let me know what you think are some sleeper picks on this card, and what matchups stand out to you. I know Ben's got like 30 different things he wants to say on this card, so I'm gonna go to you last, Ben, because I know you'll wrap things up. I'm gonna start with you, Matt. What is standing out to you besides the main event on this card?
It's just a like really good event, like from top to bottom. Like Mark DeCassi versus Lando Venata is like the second fight from the bottom. Like, holy Jesus Christ! Like I am so excited for that fight. Alex Oliveira versus Nicholas Dalby, sign me up. Everyone forgets that Nicholas Dalby gave Darren Till that work. Just want to point that out there. Everyone seems to forget that. Anytime OSP fights, I like OSP fights, so I'll watch, even though I do know that he can fight really boring fights at times, but I do tend to like him as a fighter. Gunnar Nelson versus Gilbert Burns should be a grappling, just chef's kiss. I cannot wait for that one. This fight is just fantastic, and Jack Hermansson is one of those guys where he is quickly becoming a guy that I pay attention to. So I'm going to pay attention to this card for him alone. Plus, Jared Cannonier looked fantastic against Anderson Silva till that little leg injury. But I love this card top to bottom. I think it's a fantastic event, especially for an overseas international UFC ESPN Plus event.
Definitely. Cole, what about you, my man?
Well, just touching on Matt, give me this event over Vancouver, Mexico City, Tampa. Like, this is way better than the past and the next couple fight night cards, and it's flying super under the radar. Cannonier, have you looked at the odds in that one? He's like a plus 220. I think he's a lot. I think he could easily knock out Hermansson in this one. I think it's a close fight.
What he said he's a plus 220.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nuts.
I'm not surprised.
Throw that money down.
Look, Jared Cannonier had a controversial win against Anderson Silva. Hermansson had a dominant win against Jacare. Like, those are just it is different. I can understand that.
But the odds being that far apart, that's wild.
One.
That's really wild. So, all right, well.
But then other than that, there's like opening up the card is Jack Shore. He's one of Europe's top bantamweight prospects. Cage Wars champ. You know, Macy Chiasson, Lena Landsberg. That should be a good fight. Fight of the night for me, though, has to probably be Dalby versus Cowboy. I think that's going to be great. I think, spoiling my bit of a Sherdog pick, I think Gilbert Burns upsets Gunnar Nelson. If you call it an upset, sure, I think he gets another short notice win. But that's a really good card top to bottom.
Yeah, definitely. So before Ben goes ahead and steals my answer, I gotta say something first, and I gotta forget the fact that I'm the host of this show and just go ahead and step on the toes of the guest. But I'm really looking forward to the Khalil Roundtree and Ian Cutelaba fight. Roundtree, it looked fantastic against Eric Anders, and that was his first camp with Tiger Muay Thai. Like, after one camp, you normally don't see such drastic improvement off of a guy in one fight camp with a new place. So I want to see what he looks like further evolve under that system even more and picking up more things. And Cutelaba is such a good action fighter. This is a guy who gave Glover Teixeira some trouble when they fought each other. I'm liking this one. This is my sleeper for fight of the night. I know we've got Cowboy Oliveira, who has that one fight IQ mistake per fight that leads to fight of the night style action. But I got to go with Roundtree and Cutelaba as my fight of the night pick. So, Ben, now the floor is yours. I know you've analyzed every person on this card to a T. Let's hear it.
Cowboy Oliveira has 7 children by different women. By comparison, his in-cage IQ might as well be Stephen fucking Hawking. Because his real-world IQ is really iffy. He versus Dalby, I mean, literally the thing that those guys are most famous for is bleeding like 2 quarts of blood in their last, octagon appearance within the last year. So, presumably the hemoglobin Grand Prix there should offer us some entertainment. You already talked about Cutelaba versus Roundtree. That's either going to be fight of the night, or if the horn sounds in the first round, you will see me in the Sherdog Slack chat pulling a plastic bag over my head and trying to kill myself via suffocation before the second round starts, because the rest of the fight will suck balls. Nelson versus Burns, like every matchup of ultra high level grapplers, it'll either be a crazy grappling exhibition or the worst kickboxing match you ever saw. Just to throw in a fight that's not been mentioned, CR Bahadurzada versus Nardiev. I mean, Bahadurzada is what he is. He is normally just a hyper aggressive, like just death machine on the feet against what's his name? Curtis Millender. You found him like shooting doubles just because Millender was so buttoned up and had such great reach. And like Millender really in that fight was the antithesis of the action fight. But normally Bahadurzada is like a wild man. Nardiev also was a wild man. So that's my sleeper pick for fight of the night is Bahadurzada versus Nardiev. But the whole card's a banger.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the sneaky good cards on paper. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching this with a cup of coffee, some scrambled eggs, and enjoying a little bit of sanctioned violence with my breakfast. It's a wonderful, wonderful combination. And then to put on a shirt and tie and go see some cage fighting up close later in the night. Saturday should be spectacular for you, man. Now, we're going to conclude things with the buried treasure, and that is the story related to the world of mixed martial arts that you feel should be getting more coverage. Because Cole is one of the news writers for Sherdog, you get to touch pretty much every single news item that comes across the desk. So you will take the place of our own Jay Pettry this week, seeing as that is one of his duties as well. Tell me, what MMA news story do you think should have gotten more attention this week?
I think it's Ketlen Vieira saying she can fight again. She hasn't fought since UFC 222 in March of 2018. Since then, she's kind of gone unnoticed, and she's still ranked number 2 at bantamweight, and her last one was Kat Zingano. Kind of weird. Some people thought she should have got the title shot before GDR, which I don't agree with at all, but she did an interview with Combate like 5 days ago, basically explaining why she was away. Now that she's healthy, she wants to be on 245 to line her up with Nunes, to line her up for all that. And I just think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about her, even though she's still ranked second, given she hasn't fought in like almost year and a half, almost past a year and a half. So I just think that hasn't gotten any coverage at all, really, for a name that is number 2 in a division.
Yeah, gotta love UFC rankings, huh? Beautiful, beautiful work there. All right, Matt, tell me, what is your buried treasure for the week?
It's the Aljamain Sterling and Malki Kawa little tiff or beef online. And really, I mean, first off, it was funny. So definitely go check out the long thread. I think Bloody Elbow put out a really good article about it, just breaking down. It has all the tweets, so go check it out. I'm not going to read them all for you. But I will say it's just more of my big point about the story is that the misconduct and just like unprofessionalism of MMA managers across the board is an issue in my opinion, and like no one seems to address it. So I just feel like addressing it right now. A lot of you MMA managers are completely unprofessional, and on top of that, complete corporate bootlickers. So please stop telling the media how to do their jobs. Please stop talking shit on fighters when it's really not your place, in my opinion. It just, to me, the manager and promoter, there's a clear distinction of the two. And managers in MMA often act like promoters in boxing. And that just really rubs me the wrong way. And just want to make point of that.
All right. Point taken. And Ben, let me know what your buried treasure for the week is.
My buried treasure for the week is that Bec Rawlings is returning to mixed martial arts. She has an announced fight on October 25th at Bellator 231. So she is newly signed with Bellator. To the uninitiated, she left mixed martial arts on a 4-fight losing streak, albeit against really good competition. I mean, if you look at her record, I mean, she lost to really good fighters at women's strawweight. I mean, she was not blown out. It's not like she just got destroyed 4 times in a row. She moved over to bare knuckle boxing, and won 2 fights in a row, one via TKO by the opponent not being willing to come out for the second round because Bec completely pieced her the hell up, and then won via decision. But you can make a credible argument that Bec Rawlings made the best transition to bare knuckle boxing of all the MMA fighters that kind of have made the mass exodus to bare knuckle boxing within the last year. Because, of course, there has been that narrative. You know, if you're a fighter with any iota of UFC name recognition and you're on a losing streak or you've been cut, you go over to bare knuckle boxing and try your luck. Of all those fighters, you can make an argument that she made the best transition. Nonetheless, on a 2-fight winning streak in bare knuckle boxing and a 4-fight losing streak in MMA, she's on her way back to MMA. And if this is a canary in the coal mine, it says a lot about the relative health of bare knuckle boxing versus MMA. I mean, I've been pretty open about the fact that I can't wait until the point that I don't have to say anything about bare knuckle boxing anymore on MMA podcasts or news reports. But this is pretty indicative. Like, she was almost the poster child for MMA fighter crossing over to bare knuckle, and she's on her way back.
All right, gentlemen. So my buried treasure for the week is Nick Newell, who finally has a legitimate shot at the major leagues in mixed martial arts for a sustained period of time. He did have a recent win in Bellator, and that was a 1-fight deal that was taking place in Connecticut, I believe, near where he grew up. And he submitted Corey Browning in the first round. But that has now led to a multi-fight deal with Bellator. So he is actually going to be regularly competing on the big stage. We haven't seen a big stage for Nick Newell, at least on a regular basis, since his brief stint in World Series of Fighting. So very good news. Someone who has continually worked hard to get where he's at and has only just wanted a shot and not to be looked at as the congenital amputee fighter, but as one of the best lightweights in the world. So he gets to ply his trade with the eyes watching on Bellator. So congratulations to him. Now, that is going to conclude this edition of Unleashed. So let's go ahead and tell all the good folks watching and listening now where they can find you and your work. We'll start with our guest, Cole Shelton. Cole, tell me the people where they can find you on social media and what sort of work you got coming up.
Twitter, at Cole Shelton 91, Sherdog. I do This Day in MMA History, every a bunch of news articles. Who do I interview this week? Jack Shore. I'll have that up tomorrow, just on his debut, fighting close to home and all that. But everything's just always on my Twitter. I post everything there, so just follow there.
Cool. And Matt, where can the good folks find you, as if they don't already know, because I done shouted you out a million times on all stuff I do.
You can find me at Matt Hunter MCR, all platforms. Mixed Combat Radio is my combat sports YouTube channel and podcast. Trending Now Network is my other YouTube channel and podcast. Check that out as well. And of course, I do some things for Sherdog every once in a while as well in terms of event coverage. So check out any of that content as well.
All right, and Ben.
I'm Ben Duffy. You can find me on Twitter at Benjamin Duffy. You can find me on the Sherdog homepage, just in the features drop-down menu under my own name. I do a lot of things for Sherdog.com, including writing opinion pieces, graphic design, and news.
All right. So I am Ant Walker. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at Ant Walker MMA. You are already watching the Walkout Network, so you can find me there. You can check out our work on Sherdog.com. Got some stuff down the pipe for MMA on Point as well. And I believe that's it. So he's Cole, he's Matt, I'm Ant. And you know what you got to do. You got to stay beautiful. You got to stay positive. You got to make sure that you dodge all the beer flying down from the aisles, and through it all, you've got to stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.